Hey yo, what is going on guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. And yes, I know this is very late because these banners actually have been posted like almost a day ago. And you know, the time it was posted for me, it was kind of like around the time I fell asleep. So yeah, I do apologize for that. And it's also been a while since we actually had another video on the channel. But if you guys haven't checked out, I've been posting some occasional stuff once in a while, like my new clips. Sometimes it's not even from Genshin. I've also been streaming a bit more on the channel, so please do check all of those out. And of course, before we dive into all these, make sure you guys subscribe and like this video for more Genshin content. And you may have noticed I don't have an avatar here anymore. Well, because if you watched my previous stream, I mentioned the reason why, or I guess I'll just explain in this video. I just decided really that, you know, the avatar isn't really that effective, so I just decided to just keep it no face cam for a while, and then maybe in the future we'll probably see it again once in a while, but for now I think I'm just gonna keep it like this. Yeah, I guess bear with me on that. And yeah, just a little disclaimer that everything I'm about to break down here is all very subjective to meta and more for like a recommendation. If you have your own personal reasons on pulling for the characters that I don't agree with, then that is fine. Everyone should pull for what they want, because in the end this is a gacha game. But anyways, let us go along with the new banners that are up, and I'm pretty sure that is all we got for today in this video. So here we go. Okay, so we got Raiden Shogun and Ayato, obviously. They are going to be the 5-star reruns for the second half of patch 3.3. And the 4-stars have been revealed. Obviously, Kujosara, not that surprising to be honest. And then Rosaria and Sayu. Okay, interesting. Unfortunately, those two are already C6 on my main account, but that's okay. But anyways, so let's go on from the top of the 4-stars to the bottom. Alright, let's do this. So Sayu, I already kind of broke down her in the channel. Honestly, she hasn't changed much. She's a top tier exploration character, okay? Just hear me out. Top tier exploration character. She's not insanely impressive in terms of combat, but she can get the job done as an animal support. She already has the advantage of using 4-piece Viridescent, which is the artifact set, and she has this nearly infinite ability to just dash. Again, it's just extremely useful for exploration. And she also has this really cool passive where she can basically make nearby animals, that includes crystal flies, to not move for a moment. You know, whenever you approach certain animals, they just move away. But if you have Sayu in your party, then those animals won't move, so it's easier for you to catch, which is extremely, again, useful for exploration. That is pretty much it. I think the best thing about her is she is a 4-star, and then, you know, more accessible to constellations too. And the only similar role we have for an animal healer is Jean, which she is a 5-star, which not everyone is going to have. So Sayu is, I think, a solid option, but if you're just going to use her purely for exploration, I don't blame you, because again, she's just extremely convenient. The fact that she's Claymore, as well as she can dash all over the place, is really useful, and she can heal. It's pretty solid. For Rosaria, she also hasn't changed much either. Rosaria, she's been the staple 4-star cryo sub DPS. Rosaria can do like a lot of stuff actually. She probably is well known to buff crit rate from her Ascension passive to whoever, and you know, it's basically like where you stack up more crit rate, the more crit rate she'll provide to your other teammates. Very useful. Her burst also applies cryo damage protect, which is also very useful for reaction teams, so you can actually build like a reaction based team for Rosaria, or if you're going to use it more for just purely off-field crowd application, then she's quite useful in that case as well. And if you also get her constellations too, she does become a pretty useful support, like especially at C6, where she becomes more of a physical support and a very strong option for Eula. So Rosaria and Sayu, both are solid, but they're not extremely top tier, and they haven't really changed much since their release. And for Kujosara, so she is a very interesting one, because she's kind of been like the starting character of this new trend of building more mono-oriented niche supports. It's kind of unfortunate how they designed her, because Kujosara, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst characters to play at C0. Like, I'm not even joking. I just want to give you a little disclaimer that Kujosara, without certain constellation, is a little different. Like, she becomes a different unit from C0 to C6. Especially from C0 to C2, because, you know, the way you play her. The more constellations you get for her, the more quality of life stuff you get. But at C6, the final one, that is where she becomes one of the best Electro supports in the game. And yeah, I guess that's about it, really. Kujosara is kind of like an expensive exclusive support, but if you do manage to get her to C6, you should build her. She's going to be an awesome support for you to use for a lot of your Electro DPS. It's like Raiden and Kaching, etc. But if you don't have her at C6, in all honesty, in my opinion, I wouldn't just build her. She's kind of okay. She's mainly just buffs attack, and she also can do some off-field electro damage, but other than that, it's alright, I guess, in terms of below C6. But C6, again, she's very good. Now, going to the 5 stars. Okay, here we go. Here's the question. Now that we got pretty much all the Archons rerunning, besides one, who is finally coming in the next patch, we finally got the Raiden Shogun coming back to end it off this year. So, is she still good? As of we probably know her reputation, she is a pretty insane burst hyper carry damage dealer. She is also really strong for energy restoration, which is her whole unique part of her kit. And she's very strong. Again, like, she can be the best driver for almost like any team, like National or Mono Electro hyper carries or physical team comps, and the list goes on and on. So, like, she can pretty much do almost every team she can fit on. And she also has solid electro off-field application, which we'll go into the next part of Raiden. Overall, Raiden, for her intended design, she's still up there in terms of damage dealing as well as utility. So is she still worth it? 100% yes. I would put her up in like top 5 best units to summon for in this game. If you get Raiden, you're gonna enjoy playing her, as well as you're gonna get so much value by using her. She also has accessibility to free-to-play gear, so like the catch weapon is a very powerful free-to-play weapon. It's just gonna be insane to have Raiden Shogun for those who doesn't have Raiden Shogun on their account. So what has changed with Raiden though? Another thing is Raiden actually has another build ever since Dendro has released. So for those who's familiar with the reaction Hyper Bloom, she's a very, very good option for Hyper Bloom because of how long her elemental skill lasts, and again, based on how frequent you apply electro, she's one of the best in the game. Her skill is super long in terms of duration, and the fact that she's polearm, she has like a lot of great polearm options like Dragon's Bane, or you know, other elemental mastery polearms that you can list. Those are going to be extremely viable too. So overall, Raiden Shogun, top tier. I mean, what else can I tell you? Like, bro, just look at her. Like, bro, you can't tell me this is the coolest looking character in the game. But anyways, so Raiden Shogun, very good, very top tier. For those who doesn't have her, I recommend pulling for her. She's extremely worth it. And plus, this is going to be a pretty insane banner to pull on anyway, because you have Kujusara plus Raiden, and if you can manage to get yourself some constellations for Kujusara, then that's going to be a massive W. Okay, so we got Kamisato Ayato, which this is his first ever rerun. So this is really exciting for those who missed out on his first ever release and wants to obtain him. So what are my thoughts about using Ayato? Personally, he is a very solid Hydro DPS, and not only that he can do damage, but he also can cover a lot of more like a Hydro applicator roles. What makes him actually kind of great is he doesn't do the most damage. However, he kind of compensates DPS with like more of a Hydro applicator, sometimes driver too. And you know, he fits into like so many teams that requires Hydro. So in a way, he's kind of more of like an offensive option for Kokomi in terms of like being a Hydro driver for maybe Dendro team comps, or maybe like Electro Charge, or even Vaporize. He may not be the best in terms of like all of those 3 teams. However, he is extremely flexible, and the fact that he can be used in a lot of these teams just makes him a pretty valuable character to own. He also has his burst where it has this long off-field Hydro application, which I think is kind of underrated in my opinion, but it's really, really useful to have. And again, it's just extra Hydro application. Ayato basically can play 2 roles. 1, main DPS, and 2, Hydro driver. So he's going to be very good for both. He may not be the best, but he can fit into so many team comps, which makes him pretty flexible, which I put in my books quite valuable to own in your character roster. I guess the only time you don't really need Ayato is if you already have like Kokomi, Mona, or Tartaglia. Like, if you already have so much 5-star Hydro characters, then you don't necessarily need Ayato. However, if you just obviously like him because of his aesthetics and design, obviously that should be your #1 reason to summon, so go for it. Ayato is quite fun to play, and you know, you can play him many ways. He's quite solid for both roles. So, what do I think about the 2 new banners? Okay, so far, I would summon if you don't care about Al-Haytham. Which, by the way, for those who has no idea and has been living under a rock, Al-Haytham is confirmed to be coming in 3.4. Not sure when he's coming exactly on 3.4, whether that's first half or second half, but if I were to guess, he's probably going to come in the first half just based on how they've been releasing their character rosters in Sumeru. I would probably say that these 2 banners are a little bit bait for those who want Al-Haytham. But if you don't want Al-Haytham, I think these 2 banners are actually quite solid, and they're pretty valuable to own. Both Rosaria and Sayu are solid, and Kujusara is extremely insane when she gets to her certain constellation. And, you know, it's up to you whether you want Ayato or Raiden, but personally, I would summon for Raiden over Ayato. I guess, especially to those who doesn't have either of them, I would go with Raiden first, then Ayato. And yeah, I guess that's really all I can say. The thing is, we really don't know anything about Alhaitham, so again, my #1 recommendation always to the second half part of the banners in every patch is to wait for the official live stream to announce like what are the upcoming characters, what did they do, and you know who's gonna be right up on the next banners, and then you can decide on whether you want to summon on the second half banners or if you want to summon on the later banners in the future. But yeah, that's my take on both character banners. Okay, so this is a very interesting banner, especially to some players who already owns Raiden Shogun and Ayato. So honestly, this actually looks quite solid. So why don't we go through these other 4-star weapons first, and then we'll go to the 5-star weapons. We have Sacrificial Frags, pretty good. It's actually increased a lot more value because Nahida is now added into the Catalyst roster, and Sacrificial Frags is one of her best catalysts to use. And it's obviously been one of the best in slot weapons for Sucrose and many other. So Sac Frags, solid weapon. Obviously with more refinements, the better. The next one is, I'm gonna skip these two for now. Favonius Lance is another powerful polearm. Probably like, honestly, I might argue the best 4-star polearm in terms of overall usage, just because of how useful it is and how many, the amount of polearm characters we have really wants this weapon. So it's actually, honestly, I might argue this might be like one of the best 4-star weapons to get. And whenever a weapon series is part of Favonius, it's already going to be pretty nice, especially with the more refinements you have, the better. Same thing with Sac Frags, but this is way better than Sac Frags in terms of usage though. Lion's Roar, it's okay, but it can be used on like certain characters like Ayato and Kaching. And again, with more refinements, the more damage you can deal, and it's quite solid. It's alright. Now for the other two weapons, I don't think we've seen these two in a while. It's the Inazuman 4-star weapon series. So they're quite rare, and they both are quite good as well. I guess we'll break down what they both do in just a second. Let me just pull up the weapon information. Okay, so here it is. We got the Akumaru. This is the Claymore version, and then we'll go into the bow real quick, the Bowen's Moon. So, it's 4-star. Here are the stats. The substat is attack. The base attack goes from 42 to 510. And the second's from 9% to 41.3%. And for the passive, for every point of the entry points combined maximum energy capacity, the elemental burst damage of the character equipping this weapon is increased by 0.12%, a maximum of 40% increase. Elemental burst damage can be achieved this way. So, same passive as the bow, basically, but I think the substats are a bit different. I don't know, I haven't really owned this weapon before. So, yeah, this weapon's good. The passive is really good, especially, again, same thing. More refinements you have, the better this weapon becomes, and at R5, I believe this is actually one of the more competitive options to even against 5-star weapons. So it's actually a really insane weapon series if your character is doing elemental burst damage, which, for example, Beto would love this, or Eula would really love this. It's a really, really powerful claymore for those who wants to deal more elemental burst damage. It's good, and also it's well suited for more of like an expensive energy team comps because, well, based on the passive here, it scales based on your team's energy capacity. So that what that means is basically, for example, if your character's energy cost is, let's say, Bennett's is 60, Ayaka's 80, or something like that, right? It's gonna add everybody's energy cost together and then average it. And that will be your value for how much you're gaining for this passive. The maximum you can get at R5 is 80%, which is gonna be a lot of damage you're receiving. So overall, this claymore is pretty good, and it's also quite rare, so if you're honestly considering to summon for this weapon banner, it's a pretty good weapon banner. Okay, here we go. So we got the Moen's Moon, which is the bow version. I think it's the same, right? Okay, it's never mind, it's the same. The only difference is the base attack is a lot higher, and the attack percentage is a lot lower. It's the same idea, same passive. So what do I think overall about these two weapon series? They're both very good. I believe the Claymore is a lot better because there's a lot more Claymore burst damage dealers rather than bow damage dealers. So just for now, I feel like the Claymore is a bit more valuable to own rather than the bow because there's just, again, not too many bow users that could take advantage of this weapon series. But it's the same passive, so eventually the more bow burst DPS characters we get, the more value this weapon will have. But for now, it's gonna be iffy, and it depends on how much you spend on the weapon banner. But it's the same idea, same passive, and even same substat. Okay, so we're now gonna go and talk about the Harangepaku Futsu and Engulfing Lightning. Ooh, first try. Alright, here we go. So we got Ayato's weapon, which for those who have no idea, this is his signature sword. And for the stats, he has a base attack of 46 and a 608 at level 90, which is pretty good baseline for base attack. For the substat is crit rate, which is, you know, crit rate you can't never go wrong with. It's pretty good as well, 7.2. And at level 90 is 33.1%. That's very good. For the passive, you gain all elemental damage bonus by 12%. It's a really good passive. When other nearby party members use elemental skill, the characters equipping this weapon will gain 1 wave spike stack, max 2 stacks. This effect can be triggered once every 0.3 seconds. Pretty good trigger effect. When the character equipping this weapon uses an elemental skill, all stacks of wave spike will be consumed to gain rippling upheaval. Each stack of wave spike consumed will increase normal attack damage by 20% for 8 seconds. So once you reach all stacks, you'll manage to, even each stack, you'll gain like 20% normal attack damage. So this is really good for characters who wants to take advantage fully of normal attack DPS. So obviously this is going to be Ayato's best in slot because he deals normal attack damage for majority of his damage. It's pretty viable on other characters as well, like Keqing. I believe it's going to be, actually it might be one of her best weapons now because of her new build that you want to build her with. And I believe you can use this on Ayaka. However, I just don't recommend it if you are going to use this for her specifically, or summoning this for your Ayaka specifically, because this weapon isn't necessarily designed for her, and plus the crit rate isn't that helpful for her because you're going to end up using her with 4-piece Blizzard artifact set, which provides tons of crit rate anyway. And I guess for other sword characters as well, it's okay, I guess, but for now I don't really see too many characters that can use this. Maybe Alhaitham could use it. It depends on what his role is. Like, again, I've said in my previous video that he could either be spread DPS but more melee version like Tighnari, or he could be an off-field damage dealer. So until his role is confirmed, we don't really know if this sword could also be viable on him. But for now, it's going to be very good, obviously, for Ayato and solid for Keqing as well. And yeah, just that's about it, basically. If you're gonna get this weapon, probably gonna end up getting it for Ayato though, honestly. I wouldn't just summon it just for your Keqing, for example, or your other characters. But that's my take on the Harangepaku Futsu. And finally, this is the Raiden Shogun's signature weapon. And here, as you can tell, this is what her weapon looks like. It actually looks really nice, and I low-key kind of want it just because it looks nice. But let's talk about her stats real quick. So the base attack is, again, same as Ayato's signature weapon. It's the same base attack, but the substat is energy recharge, going from 12% at base to 55.1%. That's pretty good. For the passive Timeless Dream Eternal Stove, attack is increased by 28% of energy recharge over the base of 100%. You can gain a maximum of 80% attack, gain 30% energy recharge for 12 seconds, and after using an elemental burst. So, extremely powerful passive for Raiden. Obviously, this is made for Raiden. This is also viable on a lot of characters like Xiangling or, I don't know, Rosaria. You can do this on like anyone that really wants attack and ER. And it's a pretty good weapon for some characters. However, again, it's more ER oriented, so just not too many characters for Polearm specifically really needs this weapon, because again, there's just a lot more other weapon options that's more free-to-play accessible, like Catch, that's free-to-play. Favonius Lance, it is gacha, but it is also a 4-star weapon, and it's just a lot more useful in terms of the passive. Unless you're trying to do damage with this, then this is also a option. There are other 5-star polearms too, maybe not as good as this, but you know, it can get the job done. But obviously, for now, if you have Raiden and you're interested in pulling for this polearm, it is going to be definitely an upgrade from Catch to this. And what's interesting is this polearm converts your energy recharge into attack percent, so you do want to like build more energy recharge into your Raiden, or max it out as much as you can in terms of your artifact stats, so that you can get more attack from this set. But other than that, a good weapon for Raiden and solid option for some other characters. So same idea as Ayato's weapon, but this is, I think, a little bit more useful than Ayato's sword. But yeah, so other than that, that's my take on the weapon banner, and honestly, it's pretty good, pretty solid weapon banner. Again, for those who are planning to summon on this second part of the patch, then yeah, it's going to be a solid option. It's the same idea, unless you're just really tempted on pulling for Alhaitham and you're curious about it, then obviously wait until the official announcement for some other characters that potentially could be rerunning as well is going to be announced. Honestly, the banners are actually quite solid, and it's going to be insane value for those who doesn't have Raiden, or I guess for those who want Ayato, or for those who's looking for an upgrade for their weapons. Yeah, so I guess that's all my takes for on the upcoming banners. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel for more Genshin content. I will be uploading some more stuff as the usual schedule, and probably we're gonna get more news soon, like, you know, Alhaitham's info, right, and his demo soon, right? You guys know this stuff. Guess that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay epic and peace out.